Cora. We've known each other for more than a decade. You're an eco-hero profiled in my book. You are a superstar and have done so much for so many in climate conservation. But for folks who may not know you, can you just tell us a little bit more about how you were inspired to get involved in climate action?
So I really didn't have a choice. I grew up with Captain Planet, Ted Turner in the house. And so myself and my 4 siblings, we were the Planeteers, I guess. We were recruited. And he always led by example, and he also hung out with experts. I mean, he's and the family sat on a mountaintop of information. He started CNN, but starting in the 70s, he became fast friends with, at that time, President Jimmy Carter, and who had a big influence on my dad's thinking. And President Carter actually commissioned a report called Global 2000, and it kind of predicted where we are right now. The environment, challenges to resources, world population. And then he was really good friends with Gro Brundtland, who was Prime Minister of Norway, who did the first comprehensive sustainable development report, Our Common Future. And so, which was kind of predicting where we are right now. And Dr. Lester Brown, who wrote for decades State of the World, that predicted where we are right now. And then later, Al Gore, who we know his position on the climate crisis. But, Dad was really good at seeing gaps and then working using his media platform and his resources to fill those gaps. And a lot of it was perfect, brilliant, genius timing. Whether it was starting the Goodwill Games during the height of the Cold War, when there was such a high risk of, us blowing up the world, between the Russians and the Soviet Union and the U.S. And then, he gave a lot of money to support the work of the UN. He was a big believer in the work of the UN, and that it really was the place where the world came together to solve the biggest threats. And really, it's worked. We haven't had World War III yet. Right. And we need to keep investing in the UN. Bill Gates and Melinda do on a regular basis. And it's like, and then the Nuclear Threat Initiative. Yeah. He started that with Sam Nunn, and it's been, an uphill slog, but they have made a lot of progress. So I just, in my own way, tried to fill in the pieces while having 3 children, looking at water challenges in our backyard, air quality challenges in our backyard, and the waste pollution problem that we had, in Atlanta and the Southeast.
Sure. Mm-hmm. You've done so much, and I know one of your big passions is also youth. You mentioned that your dad is the original Captain Planet, and for so many kids, the Captain Planet cartoon defined that generation of millennials. If you could tell us a little bit about your work at Captain Planet Foundation and Gen Z. I mean, climate change is their #1 issue. We saw them vote in big numbers during the midterm elections. I would just love to get your thoughts on how do we work with Gen Z, the next generation?
Well, the Captain Planet Foundation came after the cartoon, and Dad really thought that we needed a superhero for the planet, that not just a superhero that blew things up, but actually a eco-superhero. But it wasn't just about an eco-superhero. He was powered by 5 youth from different continents around the world, and it was the first time that millions, 40 million youth from every continent saw lead characters that looked like themselves. Right. So at that point in time, youth were invited to sit at the table and to be inspired to be great environmental stewards and to take action. And then the foundation, we've been operating for 31 years.
That's amazing. Just by the way, that's amazing. 31 years. Yeah.
Board chair. And we did a lot of re-granting. That's what we did, to formal and informal educators. And we've impacted over 10 million youth and directly funded about 1.5 million youth. And so those were great projects. But with Generation Z, Gen Z, they came directly to us and said, why? We don't want you to go through the educators. We want you to directly engage with us. And this is what we need.
Yeah.
You know, we need the resources, we need the training, and we need the platform. So we're like, okay, well, let's give this a try. And it has been amazing. We started doing boot camps back in 2016, and it was called Ocean Heroes. So we really focused on, the youth wanted to focus on ocean health, huge topic, plastic pollution, climate change. And since then, you know, during the pandemic, we went virtual, which was a great thing because we went around the world and we've worked and trained 2,500 youth.
Wow.
In about 90 countries.
Yeah.
And these kids are friggin' off the chain unbelievable.
They are unbelievable. And they want a seat at the table. So I think the Wisdom Council is something that a new initiative at Captain Planet Foundation, and that also connects to the UN Foundation and the work they're doing with Unlock Our Future. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, but the youth are training youth. You know, their peers, the youth leaders are training others. And so we supported that. And these kids are banning, you know, plastic straw, or getting, you know, the adults to ban plastic straws in school districts. They've stopped governments from blowing holes in coral reefs to get ships closer into shore. They have, you know, shut down coal-fired plants. They are doing all kinds of amazing work, and I'm so proud of them. But the UN, too, Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General, has made a huge commitment to getting youth to the table and not have it just be token.
Right.
Because everybody's talking about engaging youth, but they're not paying for it. You know, it's like I have these youth leaders that are absolutely genius, and they want a job. You know, a paying job. And they're expected to work for nothing. And that's just, it's not right. So these fellows now at the UN Foundation are part of this coalition, the Unlock the Future Coalition, which represents, it's youth-based and youth-led organizations around the globe. So that Save the Children, just to name a few, because there are about 20, Save the Children, Teach for America, YMCA, Kofi Annan Youth Foundation, and others that represent 800 million youth. And now these fellows are working with the youth to design the future that they want, looking at education, looking at health, looking at climate, and because we're leaving them in a world of hurt.
We are leaving them in a world of hurt, Laura. I mean, that is true, and they are anxious about it, they're worried about it, and they're really focused on solutions. And I know as a board member of Project Drawdown, that's something that you're really focused on. Can you tell us a little bit in the few minutes that we have left, kind of what you've seen on your ranches? I mean, obviously, we know that you're a huge proponent of public lands conservation, but also private lands conservation. Can you tell us about the Turner Ranches, regenerative agriculture, and soil health, and what you've seen there?
So just to kick it off with Dad again, when he was 9 years old, he read a National Geographic Explorer, and it broke his heart, and he always remembered it, what happened to the millions and millions of bison that roamed all of North America, and, you know, really what happened to them, the systematic slaughter, to affect, you know, some people call it genocide of the indigenous people of this country. And so Dad always kind of kept that in the back of his mind, and when he made it big enough to have a piece of land, he acquired 3 bison. And so, and as he became more successful, those 3 bison had lots of babies, and he's grown it into a herd of 50,000 bison across 14 ranches. And when he would buy these individual properties, he would take all the barbed wire fences down, the miles and miles and miles that were put up for for a non-native species,
Right.
cows.
Cattle. Yeah.
And the lands were really degraded. And so, the keystone species, the bison, when they came back, the wildlife came back. Dad said his places were going to be refuges for large carnivores.
Right.
So wolves, bears, mountain lions.
And Laura, can you remind me the percentage of land in private versus public conservation? I think you were saying it's 60%.
60% of biodiversity in the U.S. is on private lands.
So this
and
this
30% is protected on public lands.
Right.
So we have to set a model for private landowners if we're going to address the extinction crisis.
Absolutely.
And Dad has been really good at that because basically he believes in the model that it's not commerce versus conservation. Actually, these two work hand in hand. And then when endangered species are involved, he's put a lot of his resources into the Turner Endangered Species Fund, which is the wind beneath the wings of endangered species on all 14 of these ranches. 3 of them are now like reserves, a Noah's Ark, if you will, that's open to the public. So, we've had tens of thousands of people come from, government agencies and educators, young people, just across the board, private landowners, ranchers, to come and see how we're managing things and to inspire them to do the same.
And Laura, jumping in here because you're talking about inspiring private landowners, talk to us about the soil. So when you see the reintroduction of bison and when you start thinking about regenerative grazing, I may not be using the right term, but tell us more about that experience too, because it's something that people don't necessarily think is sexy, soil as a carbon sink. But I'd love to get your perspective on that. Talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. So, well, for me, it all started with school gardens because that was one of our most popular grants at the Captain Planet Foundation, and we have 300 gardens in Atlanta, and I just love it that young people are connecting with the healthy, nutritious food in a significant way, and it's all about healthy soil, healthy food. But we're doing it on a huge basis, but. We actually, the land is much better off than it was before, the family acquired these lands. But still, with our consultants, Understanding Ag, we went out, and I've been to so many soil health academies because there are a lot of
you're
ranches.
Such a soil nerd. It's so fun.
With, all of our ranch managers because they're learning on the job here. And what you think looks healthy is not healthy. The soil temperature, you use a thermometer and it's 140 degrees or higher. That means it's pasteurized the life in the soil. Nature tries to cover itself and it takes a long time for these lands to heal naturally. But you can use animals like the bison, the 50 million strong, years and years ago in Europe, the wildebeest in Africa, obviously in the United States, and you can use cattle too. I don't know about goats; they're terrible, but they just pull everything up by the roots and they eat everything. But if you intensively manage their grazing, you can actually bring back the life to the soil very quickly, and there's so many miracles of miracles. It makes the land more drought resistant. It kickstarts the microclimate. The hydrological cycle. It refills aquifers.
And talk to me too about
pollinators, native plant species. You grow more fodder for the bison that is healthy and nutritious because they're native plant species.
I mean, the ripple effects are amazing, right? I mean,
and more profits.
And
it leads to more profits because the cows are healthier, happier, and you get a premium if they're prairie finished.
Absolutely. So we have another minute, and we are going to do a lightning round with Laura. It's just amazing the ripple effects of all the work that you're doing in regenerative ag on the Turner property. So lightning round is I'm going to give you a phrase or word, and you give me your response. Favorite climate solution? Go.
Project Drawdown, leading source, world's leading source of climate solutions. And John Foley is speaking tomorrow, and I'd be remiss if I didn't give him a plug. I don't think he's here. He probably got a better offer or something, but badass. And if you don't see him speak, go to Project Drawdown and check out all the solutions. It's a great resource.
Favorite documentary. Sorry, favorite documentary, not doctor. Favorite documentary. Go.
I'm going to say 3. Kiss the Ground, which is about the soil carbon cycle, My Octopus Teacher, and Fantastic Fungi.
Awesome.
So you have to see those 3, and you will never eat octopus again.
Okay, hope.
Privilege.
Hope is a privilege. And
And
final.
there's so many people who don't have hope, and if you don't have hope, then all hope, it's just lost cause and violence ensues. So because people are desperate.
Hope is a privilege. That's beautiful. Last and final for the lightning round. Legacy.
Brings to mind, and I use it kind of like as my saying, and it's Chief Crazy Horse, the indigenous proverb, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children.
Thank you, Laura Turner Seydel. Thank you.